This happens every time. Right, and then I'll just start talking. Right, 50 and Coping's second season is exciting, and I'll tell you why. Because the first season was all about moving up to me becoming 50 years old. And now I am 50 years old. The only thing about that is actually nothing has changed. I'm still the same human being, wear the same clothes, my weight fluctuates constantly, and nothing has changed. So if you are dreading becoming 50, then please don't, because there is no problem. Just move on, move through it, look to the other side of 50, which will look exactly the same as where you are now. Today, I am blessed to have somebody I've known for a long time but haven't seen for many years. Laura Drane is with us. Hello, Laura.
Hello.
Lee is here too, as always. Laura, it's been a while. Mm-hmm. You and I used to move in the same circles. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which used to involve a lot of substance abuse, and possibly just like living a bad life. How have you managed to change your life completely without any of us noticing? Then you appeared back in Hartford. Do you know what I mean? So, okay, I mean, how long ago was it? So, when did you get clean?
Okay, so I got clean and sober December 2008.
Okay, so before, so largely cocaine.
Alcohol and coke were my drugs of choice. They were the things that I liked the most. But to be honest, I'm not a fussy addict. So if that wasn't available, I'll do whatever was available.
Okay, so we're very similar in that. We moved in the same circles. We did the same things. I moved away from all that. So then, how do you get to the situation where you've had enough? What was your snapping point?
I get asked that a lot, actually, and I mean, there were different points for different things. So there were several times that I felt like I'd had enough in terms of substances. There were quite a few rock bottoms where I thought, this has got to stop, this has got to change. But me getting clean and sober, actually, that happened on the back of a very abusive relationship.
Okay.
So I was with a guy, we hadn't been together very long, we were living together, he was very, very violent, I was violent too. Right. The relationship was really toxic. He actually didn't drink and he didn't allow me to drink.
Oh, hello.
So that I was crazy because drink and drugs were my medicine. They were the things that just about kept me stable.
Stable-ish. Yeah.
So when I was not allowed to use my coping mechanisms, my mental illness, if you like, was just rampant.
Okay. How did that manifest?
Well, it was a lot of it manifested a lot in the relationship with him. Yeah. So there was a lot of jealousy. I was obsessively controlling about what he did and where he went. Oh. And he knew that, and he would exacerbate that
so he'd play you.
Yeah, right. Totally. So you can imagine the kind of toxicity between us. Yeah. He was trying to control me, I was trying to control him. I would really wanted to drink and take drugs, but he wouldn't let me. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I had a friend, and she could see what was going on, and she said to me, Laura, this has got to stop because you're going to die. I was really thin, I was very stressed, I was on edge all of the time. It's actually the only time my mum has ever said that she was worried about me. All the time that I was drinking, taking drugs, married to a drug dealer, my parents never commented. But by the time I got to my rock bottom with this relationship, my mum said, what is wrong with you, Laura? What is wrong with you? Okay. Because I was a crazy lady.
Right. Did you have any cats?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No.
Not to be flippant. I think when you have somebody like a parent, because my parents are the same thing. They didn't comment on anything, mostly because I didn't let them in, right? But if they come to you, you kind of, that's the one thing that will make you go, oh, hold on. Because when you're in the moment of that, you don't realise your life's chaos.
No.
You don't realise you're in the shit, do you?
No.
So, you're in the shit.
Yeah.
How'd you get out of it?
Well, I had a friend, she saw what was going on, and she knew exactly what the problem was, which I didn't. All my life I've just thought I have terrible bad luck with men. I seem to choose the wrong men somehow. I also am very, very greedy when it comes to drink and drugs. You know, I'm very greedy. I like to use and drink much more than everybody else. But my friend sat me down and she said, Laura, you are an addict. I can see that. You know, it plays out in everything you do, the way that you have relationships, the way that you drink alcohol, the way that you take drugs, the way that you smoke. Everything about you is addictive.
Yeah.
You need to get help.
Right.
So she showed me where to go. I went there, and my God, the relief of finding out what was wrong with me, that I wasn't just like a wrong 'un, like, you know, like morally defective.
Right.
I actually have an illness. I have the illness of addiction.
Yep.
And to find that out was just, I mean, it was wonderful.
So there was solace in just the knowledge of knowing that it's not your fault?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's not to say I don't take responsibility for the things that I did, because I do, and I have.
Yeah.
But I understand that there's something larger at play than me. You know, this my thinking can't stop me from behaving the way that I behave when I'm in active addiction.
Okay. 12 steps?
Yes.
Right. So, higher power.
Yes.
Right. From speaking to Chris Love, who you know,
Yeah.
I didn't do the 12 steps, right? But, well, you know what kind of a mess I was in. And it got worse and worse and worse and more. But instead of relationship, I was insular. So I'm at home, like by the end of it, injecting heroin and coke one after the other, because I, exactly like you, am greedy with all things, which still manifests itself today in my life. So, you know, when I do drink, it's all the drinking. I do have these rules though. It's really odd. Right, so my birthday just passed, right? That's why we're here. And then we went out for dinner and everyone had a great time, and there was no badness, right? But I have this rule: I don't drink any spirits. So I will drink cider and I will drink beer, because basically, you know, I've got a tolerance to all that, and it's fine. I was smashed, but I didn't do anything bad. I wasn't angry. But the guy in the restaurant, because he knew it was my 50th, bought me 3 shots of Hennessy in a glass. Now, because I'm wasted, I just banged it. Now, what didn't happen was, okay, break the seal, let's fucking have it, right? Because that's what used to happen. But luckily now, because obviously I've been clean for 13 years or whatever, you know, with those things, my rules stuck. So the trouble with being inside that addiction, and finding your way, is that until you know there's something wrong, there's nothing you can do about it.
No.
But,
Sorry, did you accept what your friend said straight away? Or did you resist it?
Let me think about that. There was resistance, because I knew that if I accepted what she said was the truth, which deep down I knew it was, I knew I'd have to change. So there was resistance, but to be honest with you, really and truly, by that point I was broken. So I knew something had to give. And it did take a while. So when I first went to treatment, which is where she took me, I stopped drinking and taking drugs that day. It then took me 6 weeks to leave the relationship that I was in. So I kind of surrendered around the substance stuff, but it took me 6 weeks of being clean and sober before I had enough self-esteem to say, actually, everything's got to change. I can't stay in this relationship clean and sober, because this is madness. That
is something you do have to do as well. You know, you have to cut the people out that are triggers, because, you know, people, if you haven't been in a situation, you have no idea of how it works, but the people around you can be triggers. You know, like, so the Friday night thing we talked about before, where, you know, Friday night you start reaching for the coke because it's what you do, and the people around you are all like, yeah, we'll all chip in, we'll get, you know, a half ounce and be dead by Sunday. You know, and those people are the triggers. So yeah, I mean, I did the same. I had to disappear. I had to change where I was in my direction. So you get to treatment, and your life changes, but it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
So how long did it take you before you knew you could trust yourself? Because that's...
What do you mean by trust myself?
Right, you could be in a situation where maybe you were confronted with drinking or drugs or whatever.
Well, to be honest with you, I thought I was fine straight away, which is the beauty of being in treatment, because people say, no, you're not.
No.
You know, but I'll give you an example. So my ex-husband, who you know...
I do.
When I was in treatment, so I was in a day service, so I used to go for, I think it was like 5 hours every day, Monday to Friday.
Okay.
And to earn a bit of cash, I used to clean my husband's house. My estranged, we weren't divorced at that point, we were separated, and he used to pay me to clean his house. Well, I used to find lumps of gear, and
I am not surprised.
there was half of me that was like, oh my god, 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 what am I going to do, what am I going to... And half of me wanting to use it, and half of me was like, just get rid of it, don't touch it, don't go near it. So I thought, I'm all right, I'm fine. But then put in that situation, which I put myself in, you know, it was a monumental battle.
Well, also, I mean, look back at the triggers. That house alone was a trigger, because obviously, you know, there was a lot of mirrors and tubes and drugs and drink and parties. Yeah, I just, you know, I said about having flashbacks, and you remember I just had one of those. Not a bad one, it just put me in a situation. So, okay, so the realisation's there, right? You've come to the end of your excessive treatment, like your extensive treatment. You're now a psychotherapist.
I am.
Right? Can you explain, right, so you've got a psychotherapist, you've got a psychiatrist, you've got all of that. What's the difference?
Okay.
Where are we going?
So it's not clear. Some of it's not clear. Some of it's very clear. So I would say, like, at the top of the tree, you've got a psychiatrist who has a medical degree. They've been to medical school, you know, for 7 years or however long it takes to get a medical degree. And they've specialised in psychiatry. So they're the person that you go to that are going to diagnose you with a illness, a mental illness. They're going to prescribe medication to you. And they may do talking therapy with you, or they'll refer you to someone else to have talking therapy. So that's the psychiatrist.
Okay.
And then underneath that, you've got like a psychologist, which would probably have a PhD. So they would probably be a doctor. And they would do, if they're a clinical psychologist, they'll do talking therapy with you. Or there are other types of psychologists, but they tend to have a PhD. I'm a psychotherapist. I've got a master's degree. Some people would say that is what qualifies me to be a psychotherapist, and some people would say that's not true. There is no clear delineation on that.
Right.
But as a kind of rule of thumb, if you've got a master's degree and you've got enough hours, you've done enough work on yourself, you would call yourself a psychotherapist.
Is that a master's degree in psychology?
In psychotherapy.
In psychotherapy.
Yeah. And then you've got like a therapist or a counsellor who might have... so my master's degree is a level 7 qualification, and somebody who is a counsellor might have like a level 4 diploma or a level 3 diploma even.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's a difficult question to answer, really, but I don't prescribe. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a medical degree. I don't have a PhD.
Right.
But I've got a master's, and I think that qualifies me to say that I'm a psychotherapist.
Okay. And the point that you actively help people every day.
I do, yeah. I mean, that is what I do. You know, I work, at the moment, I've got a private practice, so I work one-to-one with people either over Zoom or face-to-face. It's about 50-50 at the moment.
Yep.
But I have worked in private psychiatric hospital, I've worked in rehabs, I've worked in treatment centres, I've worked for charities. So I've done a fair amount. You know, I've been doing it since 2012, so I've got a fair bit of experience.
I would have said. So do you think that your past experience is what drove you to become who you are?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Just a slight tangent. Do you think I've said before, when I stopped my addictive behaviour, obviously I'm still an addict, we all know that, because I keep saying I'm an ex-addict, which you're not allowed to do, are you? When I did that, I wanted to go and save the world. I wanted to tell everyone I was an addict, but I'm all right, and it's okay. And I think that comes and stems from the relief that you feel in yourself, that you're free of that. And I hate this cliche, but it kind of worked. That monkey that's on your back, I'm free of it. So what I did then is, Sean, my brother, who's been on the show too. He is a substance abuse counsellor, and he runs a whole show up north. And he's very good at it because he's been there, and he's seen it. I strongly believe that the best people who can help people have walked a mile in their shoes, and all the other cliches, but it's fucking true. So do you think that gives you a strength? Do you think it gives you, did it give you the push to become who you are? After you're free of it? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I was first sort of given the idea about becoming a therapist when I was in treatment, because it was group therapy. So there were a group of clients with 2 therapists facilitating the group, but the clients were really encouraged to give one another feedback. And I loved giving feedback. Yeah. And the therapist, yes, I did. I really loved it.
Yeah, I bet.
And the therapist said, you'd make a good counsellor. Have you ever thought about training to be a counsellor? So I started whilst I was in treatment. I thought, right, well, I'll just start. I'll do the introduction, the 10-week course or whatever, and it went from there. But I never. Would I have ever thought about it? I don't know. Maybe I would have done. I mean, I've always been interested in helping people. I've always been psychologically minded. I'm interested about why people do the stuff that they do. What motivates people to behave in certain ways. But I think being in treatment, getting that feedback, and actually having a blank slate is what pushed me into becoming a therapist, because I had nothing else. There was nothing else.
There's nothing else. There's a void. Just weirdly, when you said helping people, why are you mocking yourself? Because when you are doing that.
Oh, because it's such a cliche to start with. I am a walking cliche. So I got clean, trained to be a therapist, and now I help other addicts. And it's such a cliche.
Yeah, but how cool is that?
Well, I don't know. I find it a bit embarrassing, actually.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do a bit.
Okay, well, if you want an outsider's impression, right, bearing in mind that we haven't seen each other in years, I respect immensely what you do, and in the fact that you can put yourself in a position where you're seeing it. You're seeing a reflection of your past, and you're helping those people. That's amazing. So well done. So I mean,
thank you.
It's one of those things that I totally respect. The only thing I did, going back to that, was when it through is I was looking at doing it, and saw Sean and all of that, and then I just suddenly thought, shit, you know what? I'm a musician. I'm just going to write a song. So I wrote a song called Self-Made Angel, which said, you try and portray yourself as better and a saint, and you're not. It's not the way it is. And then that cleansed me of that. And then I thought, right, I need to go off and do whatever I'm doing. And then I ended up tattooing again and all of that. But if you're in a situation where you can provide insider knowledge, if you like, then those people are going to believe in you. And that belief in you is what saves them to a point. Do you think, Chris said he didn't really see, he didn't like the thing about rock bottom and the snapping point and all that. And I can't tell you what my starting point for taking drugs was. Do you remember what caused you doing? Was it just having fun?
I just liked it.
Yeah, well, you're fucking right. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I've got a 9-year-old kid, right, who's growing like a weed, and he's a beautiful child. He's not me. He's lovely. He's sensitive, and all of that. But one day, he's going to come across something, and I obviously I'm not going to go. Well, no, I'm going to tell him what happens. We say you're going to enjoy it and you're going to have a great time until you don't. And it's after that till you don't when you realise it's controlling you. That's what you got to look at.
But he might not be an addict.
No, I don't think he is.
So he won't necessarily have the same experience as you.
No, but you can see where my fear comes from.
Oh, absolutely. But he might dabble. He might try different things, not really like, the hangover or the come down or the whatever, and think, no, it's not for me. Not everybody.
And he's got you to turn to as well. I didn't experience drugs at all, basically. So my daughters didn't have me to turn to. They had other people to turn to. Perhaps I shouldn't go too far down that route, but I couldn't give them any advice. So therefore, they didn't have someone to.
I get that, but you were there for them, whatever.
Yeah.
And if they did take drugs, you wouldn't have judged them. You'd have helped them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, isn't it? Just be there, be present.
But you've got both sides of it. I mean, what you've just said, what you would say to Samuel, is exactly it. I'm not speaking from the person in those shoes to say, yeah, you'll have a good time, but it will potentially screw you up, because I've not been screwed up by it, so I've not got any experience.
Because we assume, as an addict, before I learned otherwise, I assumed that everybody experienced substances the way that I experience substances, which is once I start, I can't stop. And when I'm not doing it, I'm thinking about doing it.
Yeah.
But normal people aren't like that.
No, exactly. I just assumed everyone. I was like, what do you mean you don't want more?
What do you mean you're going home?
Yeah, what? How did you sleep? What? I mean, that's the thing, right? So you start. Okay, let's explain that, right? So you and I back in the day, then we would we'd hook up at some point with everyone, and there was lots of us usually, and then we'd decide what we were going to do, whether it's like go to the boxing or we'd come out and we'd go into something, and then in the car on the way up we're all fueling up, all the way in there usually had some spoons or a bullet or whatever, and then we'd fuel ourselves through the whole weekend. We'd be indestructible, right? Then back to the house. Couple night, the sun would come up and someone would say, oh, well, we need to get some sleep. It's like, well, that's not going to happen. So you'd have a drink, and you'd drink and drink and drink until the buzz came down enough. You could start again. That perpetual cycle of nightmare. Right, sorry, I don't mean to trigger you, right, but that's the reality of it. Okay, now obviously we are both clean, we are both sane-ish, but do you find that your addiction manifests in other ways?
Absolutely.
So, okay, you know about the biscuit gate, right? Jim and his biscuit gate, right? So I've recently lost weight. So I've lost 3 stone to get down to some 16 something, right? Because obviously I'm unhealthy and I need to get healthier, right? So I've done that. But then halfway through a week where I'm winning, I would then go and buy the largest packet of chocolates or digestives. Say that when you're pissed. That you could find, and then eat the fucking lot. Because it's always yes, always more. What the hell, though? I mean, so you have to watch as an addict. You have to watch your behaviour and how it manifests in other directions.
Absolutely.
Do you have any of that? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I've gone through different things since becoming clean. So I had a problem with gambling at one point.
Right.
I've had a problem with shopping, spending, debting. So, my relationship with money isn't great. I've, worked workaholically.
Yep.
Food comes and goes. Sometimes I'm an overeater, sometimes I'm a restrictor. Exercise, if I start running, then I'll start doing half marathons, and so I don't do anything
by halves.
No. And that's my nature. That is what it is to be an addict. So I'm constantly, anything that makes me go, ooh, that was nice, I have to be careful.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to want to do it all the time.
Because you were throwing yourselves in, are you still doing the water thing?
Yeah, cold water, yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, but don't knock it.
I'm not knocking it, mate. I don't know anything about it.
It's fantastic. I mean, I know you want to talk about stress and stuff. Yeah. I mean, that is an amazing stress buster.
Beautiful segue into... Well done, Laura. Look at you.
Yeah.
Right, so, yeah, I mean, how does that start? So let's explain. You go to... Where do you go?
Well, mostly Hartham Common in Hertford. So there are 2 rivers that meet in Hartham, and that is quite a good spot for swimming if you want to swim. Or my friend and I have a secret dipping spot that I'm not going to tell you because it's a secret.
Right. You've got to keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
So, how cold is it?
Well, it depends. I mean, like dead of winter, you might get down to maybe like 4 degrees.
Okay.
Which is
cold.
Cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your reaction as you come out, presumably, is one of, almost hypothermia. How do you regulate what's going on?
Well, your body does that for you. I mean, now is a very good time to start because the water will get incrementally colder over the next few months, and your body will just learn to adjust.
Okay.
And you just adjust the amount of time that you're in for. Some wankers wear wetsuits.
Wankers in a wetsuit.
I'm not a wetsuit wanker, so I don't wear a wetsuit, but if you really need to, you could wear a wetsuit. But so if you just started now, you would get used to the cold, and your body will tell, although you say your body doesn't tell you, your body tells you after a certain amount of time, this is fantastic, stay in here for the rest of the day. And then that, that's the point you have to get out.
Because you're going to die.
Yeah.
So you say that it's a stress reliever. So talk me through that, the release of stress.
So I don't know like the proper medical explanation to it, but I do know that you have a thing called your vagus nerve, which is the thing that regulates your nervous system. I think that's right.
Yeah.
When you submerge it in cold water, it does this weird thing where it just kind of resets it. So you can actually feel it happening. I feel it happening when I get into cold water and I go up to sort of there at the back of my neck.
Okay.
All of a sudden, everything just goes very quiet.
Right.
So I'm getting in and I'm cold and I'm freaking out a little bit, and me and my friend are screaming, hysterically, and then we both just go.
And then there's that moment of peace. Wow. So I mean that's pretty strong stuff. That's
beautiful.
Ethereal. I want to say ethereal. It's almost magical. But okay, so is that one of your main stress relief things?
So that is the thing that I use in the winter because I suffer with depression. I'm not afraid to say that I'm on antidepressants. I have been on antidepressants since I first started taking ecstasy when I was 16. Right. So that's not a coincidence.
No.
I've been on Prozac since then.
Right.
And I'm 47 now.
Okay.
So that manages my depression.
Yeah.
In the winter, I struggle more because I'm a summer person. I like the sun, I like the warmth, I like this, all of that stuff.
Yep.
So I have to step it up a gear in the winter because I struggle. So what I found was the cold water stuff actually is wonderful. That really helps get me through the winter.
Okay.
It's the same as the ice bath stuff. Exactly the same.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you both right now. It sounds amazing, but I'm not doing it.
Cold showers.
That's the spirit.
We'll do another show about cold showers and all that stuff. But yeah.
Cold showers.
Yeah.
Right. I went on social media and I asked the people on my accounts how their stress manifests. So I want to ask you, how do you know when you're stressed? How does it manifest itself in you?
So me personally, so I guess I've only just recently really realised what anxiety is, because I've always sort of known that I can get this weird sort of tightness in my stomach and this general sort of uneasiness about stuff. Can't really pinpoint what it is, but I'm worried. I'm worried about something existential. Can't really
put your finger on it. Fucking hell. That's exactly. I have anxiety and I'm on sertraline and whatever and all these other buzzwords. But that's the thing. It's you are worried, and everyone goes, "Well, what are you worried about?" You go, "Everything, from leaving the house to talking on the phone, everything." So that's good that that other people feel the same thing. You see, it's community about that. That helps. Just hearing that you've explained my anxiety in your own form, which. It's quite selfish of me to point out that that's a good thing when it's your anxiety. But
when my mum suffered, it was explained that the psychiatrist she was talking to explained it as an inexplicable sense of doom.
That's exactly it. So, and your coping mechanism, as well as is there an everyday coping mechanism when you're not around cold water?
I mean, there are things that help. I like being outside, so I like being in nature. I've got a dog, as you know. I've also got a horse. Those two things mean I have to go outside because the dog has to be walked, the horse has to be seen to. So thank God for that, I say, really, because when I'm up at the horse, when I'm walking the dog, when I'm out in nature, my body does this weird thing. I don't always notice it, but when I'm in nature, I think my breathing just sort of goes, like I don't even, it's like, I don't mean to do it.
It's unconscious.
Yeah.
So unconscious release.
Oh, I just somehow seem to let go of something.
Yeah.
So that works for me, and I've become conscious of that now. So I know, right, if I'm feeling crap, get up the horse, get out with the dog, put the wellies on, you know, get out in nature, even if it's pouring with rain, you know, just get outside.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, I've always said that, you know, walking my dog, Skylar, the dog before, and Lily now, that you know, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is the only time you've got in a busy life to calmly analyse what's going on, think your way through the day and make a plan. I never stick to those plans. I'm rubbish at planning anything, but it feels safe and secure to know that you've made some decisions. Do you know what I mean? But it's on that. Well, look, I mean, do you mind if we go through a few things of this? So, I mean, I'm not going to give out names, but the first one says that it's always sleepless nights and feeling of impending doom. So, I mean, you know, is there a way that, you know, the sleepless nights I can relate to? I don't sleep.
Don't you?
I just don't. I mean, and I never have. And I'm wondering if that's, you know, that's harking back to the fact that I never slept for days on end when I was, you know, using. But it's a strange thing, you know, that there are a lot of people in this world who don't sleep, and this feeling of impending doom is anxiety. Is it? I mean, everyone in life must feel anxiety to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you don't feel something, you're kind of dead inside, which is probably.
Do you know what though? I have to say, I mean, one thing that the 12-step program has given me, which I do believe is a wonderful antidote to anxiety, is faith, because the 12-step program really says, you know, everything's going to be all right. You know, even if the worst possible thing happens, you're still going to be all right.
But isn't that just fake, false hope?
Well,
because is it going to be all right?
Well, how is it not going to be all right?
Well, yeah, no, well, I get that, right? But what I'm getting to is that there's a lot of platitudes, and I'm not fighting against the 12 steps. It's helped a lot of my friends and all of that, and I'm interested in it. But there are two things that I would immediately fight against, and I've said this. One is the higher power thing, because you equate it with God, and it's not.
Who does?
I.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't, maybe. But as a whole, people from the outside would equate a higher being as being God, right? Now, I don't have that belief system. I do have, which I've noticed more and more doing this show, I do have a belief system. I do have, you know, if you voice what's going on, you vocalise how you're feeling, where you're at, and you put that out in the world, that takes some of the stress out of it. So if somebody is coming to you or they seek your help and they're having sleepless nights and they're having anxiety, what do you suggest they do?
Well, sometimes what helps people is to really dig down into what they're worrying about.
Right.
You know, like, let's get it out there. Let's get it out there on the table. Let's really go through what it is. Is it, you know, and for some people, you know, they think it sounds crazy. You know, I can't say that out loud. Yeah. Well, you can, and say it, and let's pick it apart, and let's really look at how likely it is to happen. You know, okay, so maybe that is going to happen, and then what? Okay, and what if that happens, and then what? You know, so sometimes it's about verbalising, it's about pinpointing, it's about, you know, like boiling it down so that you can see this is what it is, this is what I'm worrying about. Okay,
because the hardest thing, as we've explained, is that anxiety is all encompassing. So you don't necessarily consciously know what the core is.
No, but that's where therapy comes in, because therapy is all about making the unconscious conscious. That is the essence of it, you know. So let's drill right down into what it is you're worrying about, and let's get it out on the table. Say it out loud. And sometimes people say it and then they're like, God, I never knew that was what it was.
Moments of realisation are going to help, right? Yeah. So if you can find the core reason, it doesn't mean that you're cured, it doesn't mean that it all goes away, but if you can focus on that core reason, you can start helping yourself. That's amazing. I mean, you know, that's the thing. I think my lifestyle, be it with biker clubs, be it with gangsters, be it with drug dealers, be it whatever, and be it normal life. Because obviously the life I was living, that was normalised. Living life, coked out my face the whole time, doing drug deals to get through, you know, seeing what was going on, using my oppressive nature against other people. You know, that's not a good thing. But then the repercussions of living like that, the echoes of your behaviour will probably shape you to some extent.
Yeah, and unless you make peace with it.
I think I don't know, I haven't. That's fucking lie.
And I don't want to sound like a 12-step evangelist, but another thing another thing that the 12-step program does is it forces you to make amends for the shit that you've done. It forces you to make peace. You know, even if people won't accept your amends, you make them anyway. You know, you own your part in stuff. And then you put it to bed. It's done.
Right, once you've apologised, that's done. It's making amends, apologising, is that
yeah,
what you mean?
it is. But it's more than that. It's about saying to the other person, what can I do to make this right? How can I make up for the shit that I did? And they might say nothing, just go off and have a nice life. Or they might say, right, I want you to donate 50 quid a month to a charity of my choice, or whatever. You know, they might come up with something, I don't know.
If they monetise it, you need to tell them to fuck off.
Well, maybe. But, you know, it is about making it, it's not just about saying, oh, that thing that I done, I'm really sorry about that.
Oh,
you say, how can I make this right? And then when you feel that you've done that, you put it, that's it, it's done, it's over. There's no more beating yourself up about it. You know, I've done it, I've made amends, it's finished.
Okay, that's great, but the trouble with that is that you know, I mean, obviously you know what rumination is. It's one of my buzzwords, right? So you cyclically think about old situations that you no longer have any control over, right? And that, you know, that influences your forward momentum because you're fixated on things that you can't change. Because I mean, a lot of my amenses will be people who are dead.
Yeah.
Right, just for the record, I haven't murdered anybody, right? Before anyone says that.
Sorry I killed you.
As far as you know. So, yeah, I mean, you know, this isn't a therapy session for me, fucking hell, but it's, you'll have to send me the bill, right? But it's interesting to know that there is usually a core, right? And if that core is a behavioural trait, you know, or it doesn't have to be does it have to be a thing?
No.
Can it be a situation or that worries you so much but you've forgotten, you know, and it branches out? Okay, that's interesting. There's another guy on here, Nick, who has said, hi mate, I get stressed, I get massively wound up, shout and swear and want to smash everything up. I don't, obviously, but once I've had my outburst, everything's calm. I mean, that's anger triggers, you know, and all of that. I mean, the trouble with all of this anxiety is to the outside, you look hostile and aggressive, and I know Nick very well, and he ain't that. The guy's a hippie, right? And I'm not saying that for effect, he genuinely is, you know, a musician and all of that, but you find yourself in a position that's untenable, and then you go bang. How do you release that bang without actually going bang in front of your family and influencing that? That's difficult, right, to deal with that?
Well, I guess, I mean, a good analogy is like a pressure cooker, isn't it? You know, you either let the steam out slowly over time or you let it build up and then it explodes.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's about talking, it's about letting it out, it's about expressing. And I think this is the problem that a lot of men have, and I'm not being sexist because it is mostly men. You know, women talk.
Yeah.
Women can talk. Men generally don't.
That is one of the things the reason why I started doing this show is because I'm perceived the way I look, and to a certain degree I am that. But not so much anymore. You know, you're getting married, having a kid, you know, it kind of mellows you out. And also being a businessman, having to deal with people in this day and age where, you know, your old abusive nature would be detrimental to your existence. You know, that doesn't work anymore. But it's a strange situation you find yourself in when you've got to deal with who you used to be. And then you've got to become better, and you have to find a way to deal with that. And I think with the anger thing, I've been there. You get so wound up, you can't do anything. I've stuffed my hand through walls, you know, banging through doors, and that's, you know, that's anger issues. You know, you need to sort that. I have a way of dealing with that now, which is like a mantra in my head. You taught my way through it, which I've never actually told anyone.
No.
I have quite a violent nature. I have quite a volatile nature. I'm not capable though of. I have certain rules in my head, right? And they're old men misogynistic rules, but they're not. I mean, it's like, so for instance, I have been in the worst rows of my life with women, but at no point would I raise fists because it's not in my programming. Do you know what I mean? It's not something that I would do. You know, my wife and I, you know, in relationships, we're gonna go at it. But the worst thing I've ever done is I threw the dog bowl behind the sofa and it smashed, right? But she was over there. Right, so you know that's bad, but because it's a violent act. That's the only thing that's ever manifested itself. But when you look at your behaviour and you notice what you're doing, you need to dissipate that somehow. So what I do is then, you know, I walk away from a situation now, and then, you know, you run a line through your head. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's mine, because I'm selfish. So you know, you're doing all that. So if you're in a violent situation, you need to find an outlet, right?
Well, I don't know, because I think sometimes, you know, that kind of violent outburst just fuels more violent outbursts. I think, really, talking as a therapist, I would say, why are you angry in the first place?
Yeah.
What is it? What's the seed of anger? What is that about? Why are you carrying that around with you? Let's pick that bit apart, rather than just allowing yourself to be explosive every now and again.
If it's okay, you see, this is why you're here, right? Because you're a professional, mate. This is interesting, because I just say, you know, okay, well that's great. I'll go and bash that bag for half an hour and get rid of it. Well, I haven't done that for a long time. I'm not that person, but I can relate to Nick, and you know, we want to swear, want to shout, want to scream, but that frustration, I mean, doesn't manifest in violence with him. You know, that's what he wants to do, but he doesn't. And surely that I find solace in letting myself do things you're not allowed to do. So hence, because addictive behaviour, right? So how you need to find the crux of the matter in all of these things, right?
I think so. I do. I mean, I suffer periodically with road rage.
Yeah.
Which I find really embarrassing, because I say things and I behave in such a way that I cringe about afterwards. But it's not about the person, it's not about them, it's not about their driving. I'm angry. Angry people get road rage. Yeah. So why am I angry? That's the bit. And often, for me, my anger is about allowing other people to cross my boundaries. And then I get resentful. So if somebody says to me, can you do such and such? And I really, really don't want to do it, and I haven't got the time, but I say yes. And then I'm driving there and I'm thinking, why am I doing this? I haven't got time. I'm going to be late. And then someone pulls in front of me and they get it.
Yeah. So in fact, it's nothing to do with the driving.
No, I'm angry.
It's the release.
I'm angry.
Yeah.
Why am I angry?
Yeah.
That's the bit, for me, that's the bit that really interests me. Why are you angry? Not how are you going to disperse your anger. Why are you angry in the first place?
So hold up your behaviour. That's great. Don't look for an out, look for the cause.
Absolutely. Pick it apart. What is really going on?
See, I told you. Yeah. I told you she'd know. Yeah. Right. So this whole stress thing, right? Emma just wrote the word tearful.
Oh.
So when she gets stressed and pushes through, and she says, you know, stress is bloody bad for you. You know, self-isolation is a thing I do too. So she deals with it, you know, when it gets too much, you put yourself in a box. Now, we've all done that, because as drug takers as well, if you end up in the wrong end, it becomes insular. So, you know, but the tearful is an outlet of stress. So what's the
I
stress?
really identify with that. I mean, you know, I'm a crier. I'm a massive crier.
That's weird. I didn't see that with you. I don't see, yeah, because you don't portray that.
No.
You're very strong.
Well, I am a crier. It doesn't take much to set me off.
But crying isn't a weakness, is it?
No, it isn't. I actually think it's very good for you, because it is a release.
Yeah.
You know, and they've done research on analysing what's in your tears and things like that. You know, it actually does expel stuff from you when you cry. You know, it is a way of getting stuff out. So I really identify with that, and I think, I don't know, I guess I think it's more, not wanting to be sexist, but I do think it's more common for women to cry when they're angry and men to sort of be explosive.
Well, men aren't allowed to cry.
No.
You can't show weakness like that.
No.
But you can.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, somebody asked me the last time I cried, and I didn't remember. My wife said it was a couple of years ago or something about something. I'm not a crier. I'm not like that. I'm big and tough. I'm just. It doesn't manifest that way. Also, though, but in a situation where you find yourself, I mean, there doesn't always have to be an extreme either, does there? It can just bubble underneath.
Oh yeah.
And I've had situations where where you're dealing with one person. And you feel like you can't say what you need to say, and that bubbles for years. And that's happened recently. And basically, I've learned that other people's perception of me is none of my business, and I truly don't give a shit anymore, which is very freeing and cathartic, and all of those words. It's all a bit odd, right? There's a lady, I'm not going to mention her name. She just says, when I asked how's it manifest, she just says all of them, everything. And I'm like, okay, when you say all of them, what do you mean? She said, I get snappy, tearful, self-doubting, whole mix of emotions. And I just said, thank you for your honesty, that's great. But, if you're in a situation like that, and you've got someone to talk to, then try and find the crux of that matter. Because, then you can look at release or look at...
And sometimes, there isn't some big reveal. I say this to clients a lot. Coming to therapy doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're going to go, oh my God, it's that.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Yeah.
Often, what people need when they come to therapy, what they're really searching for is they need to be heard. They need somebody to listen and to say, oh God, that's awful. I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
That should never have happened to you. Yeah. Because, I hear some shockingly awful things, and there's nothing I can say. No. There's nothing I can say to make it right. And that person doesn't need me to say anything. They just need me to witness their pain, their tragedy, their horror. They need someone to just be able to sit there, soak it up, and say, oh, that's bad. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Because human beings' tendencies is to want to relate somehow, but then what you're doing is robbing that person of their release.
Absolutely.
Robbing that person of their own, by saying, well, yeah, but when I did that, and I used to do that a lot, right? I've got listen tattooed on the front of my hand. I've got stop, lies, listen, truth written on my hands to remind me to shut the fuck up and listen to what somebody's saying to me. And I do my best to do that now. But, and my wife used to say to me, look, this isn't about you. Stop making it about you. And I was like, what do you mean? I relate to what you're doing. Well, it's not fucking helpful, Jim. You shut the fuck up. And now, hopefully, I'm a little better at these things. I make things about her by, being present for that thought. And I'm really sorry that's happened to you. Because you don't need to fucking provide a solution.
No.
That is the biggest thing for men as well, right? Sometimes there is no solution. No. You just shut the fuck up and have a listen.
Is that true? The old men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing about men wanting to fix stuff. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. I do. I mean, yeah, it's a massive cliche, but I do think men. I don't know if it's the way that you're made or whatever, but you looked to find a solution, and as a woman it's so fucking infuriating.
Yeah, I know. We've both been through the same thing, not as a personal relationship but in our relationships.
Practical answers is what men want, but it's bullshit.
In terms of a bit of a sort of stereotypical response, I guess, about not worrying about the things you can't control. When I was seeing my therapist, she said, if you can control something, then control it. If you have some influence over it, have some influence over it. If you have no control and no influence, there's no point worrying about it. How do you... It's all very well saying that. How do you not worry about it?
Well, I mean, the way that I would do that is to just kind of remind myself that there's nothing I can do about this, and I just have to trust that it will be okay.
Yeah, I think I've got there. I don't think I do worry unnecessarily about lots of stuff these days, but I used to a lot.
And a beautiful tool, I think, is just concentrate on what's going on right now, because worry is almost always about something looming, something in the future, or something I did that I wish I hadn't done that. Neither of which you can control. So it's a really useful tool to just think about what's going on today. Am I okay? Have I got a roof over my head? Is there food in the cupboard? Are the kids okay? Blah blah blah. Yes. Well then I'm okay.
And I'm assuming a lot of the problem, as we've said, I think on previous pod, a lot of people's issue is the fear of what might happen.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, what would happen? What would happen if that did happen?
What if it did happen?
Yeah, I mean, worry comes from the repercussions of, say, when you're worried about where you've been and what you've been doing, you're worried about the repercussions of your actions, right? But there's nothing you can do about it.
What's the worst that could happen, I guess, is still something to come back to.
What's the worst that could happen is an amazing way to end this, because believe it or not, we've gone way over time. I'm going to ask you something, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Go on.
If we come across a situation, right, somebody sends in something, and what I perceive there'd be an answer to it, would you be open to me asking you that question from this show?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to.
Because then, if my one worry with this is we're not professionals, but you are, and if we came across a situation that was untenable for us, would you be okay with us contacting you?
Yeah, I'd love to.
You'd be like the show therapist. Nice one.
Thanks.
See, there we go. 50 and Coping is about exactly that, coping. And you've heard it from Laura. Analyse the core problem. And if you can't find it, keep searching till you do. Talk to somebody, find a professional. If you can't afford a professional, try your hardest to find someone who will empathise and possibly not talk about what they used to do and how they coped. They just listen. Thanks so much to Laura and Lee for being here today. We will see you next time.